Hello, everybody. So welcome to your Wednesday Mindset Reset, middle of the week, September tomorrow, bit freaked out about that, but spring's coming, so it's all cool. We aren't in studio today. We're virtualing it because we've got the lovely Rebecca Jenkins joining us from Where the Wild Women Are, and she's over the Kaimai in Cambridge, which is quite spectacular come spring. So we're really excited about today's conversation. Rebecca has a really beautiful journey. She spent quite a lot of time in corporate world, doing the HR hamster wheel, climbing the ladder, has been in business for herself for quite some time, and then over the course of the last little while, which she'll tell us a bit about, she's created an amazing community of women and just in a really lovely space that she's it's Where the Wild Women Are, but unofficially it's a social club for women over 35, which I love. So Rochelle and I are so excited about this conversation today. We're going to try our best to stick to time, wish us luck. And I just think there's just going to be so much value, because making friendships when you're grown up is really, really hard. So kudos to you, Rebecca. This is an incredible business and just an incredible impact in terms of what your work's doing in the world. Do you want to share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure, no worries. Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Jenkins. Obviously I'm in Cambridge. That's what Alana has already told you. I have been a solo mum for about 10 years. Been through several relationships that had domestic violence as well involved, and I removed myself from that. And in my life I studied psychology and went into HR with that psychology background. I started in around about 2006, I think it was, my studies, probably a bit sooner than that actually. And I went into initially recruitment in 2007. So since then I've gone through working for DHBs, private companies and consulting as well. And then I decided to move into my own business. So that was a big step.
Yeah. And you sort of alluded that some of that move into business and perhaps away from HR was a little bit of the old burnout word. So do you want to tell us, because burnout, I think, gets sometimes talked about, or sometimes it's the elephant in the room. Do you feel comfortable sort of sharing how that showed up for you and how it gave you the nudge to get to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So it was probably late 2019, I suppose, around about. I actually sold my business last year in July, but it took me about 8 months to pull my finger out and actually put it up for sale. That burnout sort of started looking at just being exhausted and tired to the point where I could no longer actually function properly, and it was a struggle to get out of bed, to the point where I was having weeks of migraines day on day. So it was, really impacting my life. It was impacting the way I was living in general with my partner and my son and his kids. And it was just really quite difficult to actually get to a point where I could have and function one full day in a week. Went to the doctor several times and just didn't really get answers until probably I sold the business, gave myself some break. But in that time I had already sort of started Wild Women, because I was feeling lonely as well and isolated. And I think, in general, we feel that with COVID and what we've been through with COVID anyway. But I think it was exaggerated for me because I came to Cambridge, I knew nobody. Although I had business contacts, I didn't really have those people that I could call my friends. So I had no one to download with. And I went and did things like I went to the doctors to get medication. I went and saw a psychologist, and I still see him. And it's been about 2 years now that I see him on a monthly basis. And I'm going to continue that probably for the rest of my life, because I see it of value. It's the one way I've been able to actually clear my head and be able to move forward and thrive. And I think when we can't reach out and get that help, we need to find other ways of doing it. So my journey's probably been about 12 months worth plus before I sold the business. So I'm well over a year now. And I can honestly say it's only been in the last month or two that I've honestly felt that I can function again properly, like for the whole day, and do a whole day's work and do, all of those things. It got to a point where I could only work an hour a day, and that was giving myself every second day to work, because I couldn't work the next day because I was too exhausted. So yeah.
And then that really impacts your sense of worth and contribution, and then that it just becomes like a little toxic spiral down. So to circuit break that and spiral up, and so much of that stems from it's little things that then, from what I'm hearing about your experience, it's the little things that then all stacked up until it was this really big thing. And I just think, you know, you're talking about that move to Cambridge. I mean, we're so much more nomadic now, and the moves between cities, you know, Rochelle and I being in Tauranga, you know, Rochelle's a native born and bred just about, but I'm not. And people said to us when we move, oh, it's going to take, you're lucky you're moving with young kids, that will help. And it will take 2 years before you feel like you've found your place. It's scary moving cities, stepping away from what you knew, like stepping away from those friendship groups and things like that. And I think sometimes we can underestimate how that impacts our mental well-being, because we then got to show up for our kids and they're making friendships and we're sitting here going, I don't have a playground for grown-ups.
So true.
I've still got, I mean, I came from Tauranga, so I know what it feels like. I know the some of the people, but the funniest thing is in the 5 years that I've not been here, so much has changed. And that's the other part of when you move away from an area, if you're not keeping in touch with those people, and it's a vice versa thing, which I found sometimes only a few friends have actually kept in touch with me from there, you know, like from on the phone and actually talking to me or coming and seeing me, and me doing the other way as well. And so it really was quite isolating, because the only person I had here was my partner. I did have business networks, and I had plenty of those. I was involved in community groups and, like I said, the chamber and things like that. I was on the exec committee there, but just not really finding anything meaningful where I could actually go, you know what, life is really shit right now. I need some help, you know, or ask for that feedback or anything like that. I just didn't have that until I set up Wild Woman.
Yeah. And just, I think there's so much beauty in, I think, from what I've seen in the space in the community, we don't make enough time for fun in our lives as grown-ups. Like, we have this real obligation to be serious, especially when we're in business for ourselves. We've got to do the hustle thing, right? Like the hustle thing, and we've got to be there for our kids, and then but try and be mindful. But actually, play is really important, right? And
it is.
I mean, do you want to maybe? I think Rochelle and I have sort of seen a snippet, but for those with us and on who are going to listen in on the replay, do you want to share a bit of a, you know, like what's your thinking behind where the Wild Women are, and how you see it being so powerful in people's lives?
Yeah, well, I started Where the Wild Women Are actually in January 2021. So it was before I sold my business. I decided that life was too serious. I felt really lost and really in a rut. And I suppose that was kind of the start of the end with burnout as well. And so I sort of started I thought, well, how else can I make friends? And so I thought, okay, well, what do I want to do? And I thought, well, I want to go out for dinner, but I want to do some other things too that I've never done before, but I don't know who to do them with or anything like that. So I literally set it up. I actually had an assistant back then who helped plan it all for me. And we just put it out there in the local grapevine. And before I knew it, I had 100 women signed up.
Woo, so, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah.
The whole idea around it was that, yes, it's a social club for women over 35. We've got women under that or over that. It didn't really matter, but it was just kind of this is the roundabout age where we start struggling with friendship, life, children, blah, blah, blah. And so I sort of made it that age. At that time, I must have been just turning 40. And then, 41 probably. But anyway, then I sort of went through and sort of decided, well, what sort of things do I want to try? And let's see who's up for it. And that's what I did. We just, we went whitewater rafting in May of that year. We did pottery. We did, paddleboarding was our first one. Dinner was our first one, and then paddleboarding was our second one. So we just did stuff that we hadn't done before and hadn't made the time for. And what I found is in that really short space of time, I met women and I see them in the supermarket now and we stop to say hello. So it was just
nice. That's lovely.
That was the idea around it. It was probably really selfish on my part for the fact that the reason why I started it was all for me. But what I really found was, and what made me feel good, was seeing other women start joining together and talking and just laughing and chatting and finding out about each other, and that actually brought so much joy to my heart. So it was really cool, and I thought, oh well, okay, Cambridge is good, you know, a little bigger.
Isn't that neat? And I think it just shows you that we totally think we're the only one going through a particular situation. You know, we think we're the only one that's moved to a new town and wants to meet some more people, or we think we're the only one that wants to go and do some cool experiences and doesn't have anyone else to do it with them. But how this just totally makes you realize that we're not the only one going through these experiences, and these thoughts and these feelings. So how neat is it that you were brave enough to throw it out there to the world and say, who else wants to join me? And all these people put their hand up and said, we want to join you and do what you're doing as well. That's really, really cool. And when you're feeling, you know, approaching on burnout or feeling overwhelmed with work and all those other challenging situations that play on our mind, it's hard to throw yourself out there. But you did, which is huge. It just shows such a depth of character that you actually were brave enough to throw yourself out there and do that. And then it was obviously the right thing, because you had all these people come and go, pick me, pick me, pick me. I want to do some stuff with you. Yeah. Such a cool idea. You really obviously just nailed how everyone, you know, what everyone needed and how people were feeling at that moment. And you just got the right timing, and you just obviously, you know, worded it in the right way, put it out in the right way, had the right ideas, and everyone jumped on board. So it's so cool. So cool. Yeah. Well done. Yeah.
Well, we were lucky. We also put it out on Choice, which is that
yes. The Facebook group.
Yeah, the Facebook group, the New Zealand-based one. And we actually went from about 200 or 300 in the Waikato to nationwide with about 1,400 in about 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it grew really quickly, and we just kept growing. And now we have on our Facebook page, we've got around about 3.4K women that are following us or watching us, and then we've got around about 2,000 women in our groups. So amazing.
So these are all people that are watching and go, oh, I want to do that. That's why people like it. I think I want to do that. When can I make it happen? Or when are you doing something near me, or what can I join with? Which is fantastic.
And I think we still struggle with making ourselves a priority. And one of the things that we've been asking lately from our group is, you know, we've been putting out all these lovely events, and Carla, who's my assistant now, she's the organizer and planner and all that, and I support her to do that while I do all the other stuff. And we've been asking why people haven't been able to come, and why aren't they making that a priority in their lives. And a lot of them have said, you know, everybody's struggling at the moment, and we're also busy and things like that, and time frames haven't been meeting up for us. And so for us, it's kind of our message is slowly changing to the point of, when are you going to make yourself a priority? When are you going to actually, you know, do something for yourself, instead of getting to the point where you are like me, I was a year ago, to the point of burnout and migraines and whatever else comes from it. Because the problem with getting to that point is the increase of really terrible diseases for us women as well, which is heart disease is one of the biggest causes now of women dying, and cancer was also all of that sort of stuff as well, because our bodies aren't being looked after. They can't fight it.
Yeah, and there's so much power and so much healing in friendships, and particularly, you know, not to be too gender specific, but women tend to be very nurturing and caring. And so when you find a group of amazing women, there just naturally seems to be connection, collaboration, and healing that sits in that. That tends to be missed because we're so busy looking after everybody else.
Yep.
And so we do need to find that place, right, that we can have our turn of being looked after, which is not to say you go and you know, suck the life force out of everybody, but in a group, you'll naturally, someone will be up 1 month if you're going to meet monthly, someone will be down, and we'll take our turns at doing that, right? Is that what you sort of see to be true, Rebecca?
See, well, every month there's a different group. So there's not the same ladies all the time, depending on their time frames and what they've got going on in their own lives. So it's quite nice because not everybody, you sometimes get to see the same people, and then other times you get to see new people. So you're actually branching out further afield. And what we've found is we've even got women coming down from Auckland who want to join in the Waikato group. So it means that those,
that's cool.
Yeah, those networks are actually growing. And yeah, who knows what Wild Woman's going to look like at the very end, but either way, it's been a really good ride.
Yeah, I love that, because often you look outside your own region and you know, obviously, and I've looked at some of the events that you've been posting. There's neat events. So people would think, oh, let's go and do that in somewhere new. Let's go somewhere new and do something new with new people. You know, that's just such a fun thing to go and do. So yeah. I love it that you know, people are moving outside their region to go and explore different areas.
Becoming so interconnected, it becomes easier to get to certain places.
Yes,
you know, like from where I am in Cambridge, I'm only an hour to Tauranga. I'm only an hour and a half to Auckland now with the new expressway and things like that.
Yes.
So there's lots of good things that are happening that make it easier for us, but we still need to prioritise ourselves. Yeah. And I don't know if I can stress that enough. I think that's probably the most important thing, is actually booking that time in and going, that's my time. You know, somebody actually said to me on our last event, and we did claybird shooting in the Waikato. I've got a lovely big bruise from the shotgun, but that's okay. They actually said to us, oh, my husband goes away for a week to go shooting down the South Island every year without fail. And I'm like, and I turned around and I said, do you do that for yourself? And she went, no. I've never done it.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny psychology?
Yeah, and I was just saying,
I've kind of highlights the whole women and gender roles that we struggle still with as women. But I also think that means that we are quite liking to be martyrs at times too. And we don't put in those boundaries that actually make it really important for us to be able to achieve that. So the other thing that happened for me over that claybird shooting was my son, who's 10, he was like, well, when are you coming to pick me up? You know, like, when is it my turn to get back to home and do what I want to? And my mother turned around and said to her, well, when Rebecca gets back, or when your mum gets back, that's when she'll be back. She said, and she said it's really important for her to go and spend time with her friends afterwards, and that's what she's doing. And so,
I love that. Go, mum.
Exactly. And I think we have to do that for each other as well.
Yeah. And then like the gift for him is that that's now normal. But I wonder if some of it, I've got two thoughts that have come from that. One is, I think there's power in that you have to go somewhere.
Yes.
Because I think if you've pre-planned that you've got to travel, you're less likely to cancel because you've had to book out more than I'm just going to pop for a walk to the beach. So I think that the size of your excursion makes it more meaningful, kind of thing. And you're having to pay to show up, so you're not going to, you know. But I also wonder if some of the thing that holds us back is, yes, there's this inbuilt societal programming about, you know, woman's place, be the martyr, do the things for everybody else. But I wonder how much of it comes back to that fear of making friends. Because, you know, like we're all, from my experience, got an 8-year-old who had some girls be mean to them at school. And our default, what I've seen, our default program is we think that a pack of women are a pack of bitches, excuse my language. Like we have this fear as women of our own kind.
Is
we're like, oh, they're going to
realization that's been in sort of bred into us by patriarchal society, though. Yeah. You know, like there's a lot of generalizations around women in general that, you know, aren't actually true. We are the biggest collaborators in business. Yeah. We collaborate like something like 75% more than men do. And just from that perspective alone, you sort of think, well, why do we still think that women will be bitches because there's too many women in a room? You know, and the other point of it comes back to boundaries again. If someone accepts that sort of behavior, it's going to grow. So if it's instantly shut down and not allowed in a group, then that behavior won't come about. And I've been really clear, is if there's any bitching, if there's any nastiness, you're out. I don't care. I don't want to know you. And I know that sounds really brutal, but as soon as you allow some of that cattiness or nastiness to come in, it makes everybody feel unsafe.
That's dead right. It's great of you to do that up front too, and say this is a positive, supportive, group of people that just want to go and have fun and do fun activities. And if that's not your, if you're not happy to fit in with being kind and supportive of other people, then this is not the appropriate group for you. And that's great, because even if people, even for the more negatively minded people, they can still come into a space and know that they're coming into a safe, positive space, which helps so much with their mindsets as well. So
I think it's something you've got to practice too. It's something that you've got to continue to do every day.
Yes.
Like we all talk about, how we should be doing gratitude journals and all those sorts of things, and we just don't do it. Yes. Again, it comes back to, when are we making ourselves priorities? When are we going to put in the things that we want to be, or who we want to be, as a priority, and start working on it? Because it's not going to happen with us just going, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Imagine what a powerful gift for all of us as women to have as a thing to be consciously grateful for. I'm grateful for my amazing supportive friends. Like, is that not the gift we would love our children to have?
Yeah,
they can't learn it if we don't show them.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true too.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other point of it is that we in making meaningful relationships and friendships, we also can start talking about things that may be a bit more taboo and a bit more uncomfortable to talk about. I've been lucky in the friendships that I've created. We talk about sex, and I have never been able to talk so openly about sex in a really long time. And I know that sounds really silly.
It's brilliant.
But if you don't talk about that stuff, you don't know what's normal. You don't know where you sit, or you don't know what's not normal and shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And,
so
and
true.
that comes back to us women, again, taking our own, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, taking our own boundaries on board, and taking ourselves on board and what's important to us. Because it's all part of it. It's all part of our beautiful life, whether it's menstruation or whether it's, women's rights or whatever it is, it's all part of what makes our life really interesting.
That's so true.
And conversations like that definitely open your mind, so much as well. And it's a great thing to be able to teach the kids. And like you say, I was just thinking then when you said about being grateful for the friendships and things that you have, what a cool conversation to have around the dinner table, to say, who are you grateful for today? What have your friends done today? Who have you helped? Who has helped you? And who are you feeling grateful for that you've got in your life? That's so awesome. And then from there, sparking the open conversations and being okay to talk that next level down of just a little bit deeper, not just talking on the surface, but going that little bit deeper is huge. It's awesome. Great tool to teach kids.
Friendships where you can go a bit deeper, I just think create such a shift in how you're living your life and your satisfaction and your joy, right? Because if you can actually, as you're saying, Rebecca, be really honest, and it might not be sex, it might just be like, hey, I'm having a really shitty time. Is anyone else finding this really hard? But if you don't have a deep friendship, you can't do that. You've got the isolation. You feel like in the social media world, you feel like everyone else is all glammed up. And then if you've got that really, like I've got a friend I reached out to last week, I'm like, haven't seen or heard from you in a while. How are you? But if we hadn't have done that work, would she have felt safe to kind of come back and been like, it's a shit time? Can we have a virtual cup of tea,
And it's so important we do reach out to those people and we do open up when asked like that. Just talk about how we really feel. It's huge.
But you're never going to open up if you don't trust someone, if you haven't had, and I think what we were talking about before you hit record, right, is the going out of your comfort zone experiences create, like that's why you have army friends, right? If you come from the armed forces, it's those crystallization moments, like a sleepover. I always reckon if you want to see someone, you see them in your pajamas, you do it overnight, and you have some good friendship when you've seen someone that, like you've had before we had a sleepover friend, and now you're like, oh, now I know what you look like when you're making your cup of tea. We're friends.
Next level. I love that.
Beautiful things too. Yeah.
And so what have you noticed being some of the biggest benefits for you and then, you know, like the women that are in your sort of ecosystem around having this more conscious application of how they consider their friends and how they're spending their time?
I don't think they're necessarily conscious about it. I think that it's more like, oh, yeah, I haven't tried that. I wouldn't mind doing that, you know, and that's what starts it. I think, yes, it probably starts with, I want to make some friends. But the only reason why they come is because there's something novel about it every time. And I think there's a little bit of novelness around what we do and how we do it. And we also try and get around and introduce everybody and break down those little initial barriers that make people feel uncomfortable as well. So even our hosts, when I'm not there and Carla's not doing one for us, even our hosts, we encourage them to sort of know an icebreaker or something fun or funny to start that conversation. And then before you know it, once that's been done, everybody's talking and nobody stops talking. And that's,
nice.
And that's what happens when you get women together.
Yes. So do you find the women that come along to your Where the Wild Women Are events, do you find they turn up alone or have they brought a friend with them?
Both. We have like our claybird shooting one, which we just did last weekend. We had two groups of two that came by them with friends, 2 or 3 groups of 2. And then we had singles as well. So
nice.
It's a real mix. But I think some of them had already been to 1 or 2 events before as well. So they sort of knew what happened, and we were able to talk about things that something came up for one of my friends recently in her health, and somebody at that group actually said, oh, I'm the coordinator of this group. And I was like, well, you guys need to talk to each other, you know. You know, it broke some barriers for that friend of mine as well, and it means that she can find some support with what she's going through. So I think it's like anything, you do have to have some ability to network, and I suppose some of my business training has helped on that. But the other part of it is just being vulnerable enough to actually be able to come and just be open enough to then talk to people. So it actually doesn't require a hell of a lot of effort.
No, that's great. I love that. You just rock on up, and especially when you're in a group where everyone is, you know, in a similar mindset, as far as I'm stepping outside my comfort zone to go and do something fun with people I don't know, and I'm open to having conversations and meeting people, and everyone comes along with that kind of mindset, then, you know, friendships and are formed and the fun is had, and everyone ends up having a great time because you're all on the same wavelengths. It's just such a wonderful safe space to come into. And then, as we were saying, when you throw yourself or step outside your comfort zone, the people around you that also step outside the comfort zone at the same time, you know, that's a next level of connection with those people. So you've thrown yourself outside your comfort zone, you've had a new experience, and you've got new connections from the people that had that experience with you. So it's just a win-win-win. It's a brilliant idea. I love it. Yeah.
And it just builds on that self-esteem and self-confidence as well.
Absolutely.
Because once you know you've done it once or twice, you sort of go, I can do this again. You know,
Absolutely.
And you'll either make some friendships and maybe you move off and go and do something else. Or you come back to it every time and just go, I still want to meet more people and new people and try all these different things too. So
tick a few things off your bucket list as well.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Fantastic.
So obviously we will send out for everyone afterwards kind of how to come and get in touch with the Where the Wild Women Are community. But for those who are perhaps a bit geographically removed or, you know, for whatever reason, if you were to give a piece of advice about adult friendship forming and connection, what would you like? Could you distill it to 1 or 2 little nuggets?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, I wasn't really a PTA mum, so I struggled with you know, getting myself into little areas where I could meet other mums. But what I did find was you have to step forward first, and you have to actually take the gumption. My biggest thing that I learned through networking was to go and find the single person. So the other person that's also not with anybody else. Because as soon as there's 2 or more people in it, becomes overwhelming, and it becomes quite challenging to actually have a conversation with people without it being without being a click of some sort.
Yeah.
So if you find the person in the room that's also standing by themselves and go and say, hi, my name is, what do you do for a living? Or it doesn't have, it doesn't even have to be that. It's like, what are you doing, here today? Or something like that, that actually starts that conversation. And most people will be taken back by the fact that somebody's actually come and talked to them. And once they get over that, they'll start talking to you as well.
That's awesome. That's
and
such
so grateful that you
lovely
have
piece of advice.
it is.
You have to step forward first. That's so cool. I'm conscious of time. Is there anything you would have liked us to ask you that we haven't had the chance to ask you today, Rebecca, or any final sort of things you want to share?
Not really. I suppose for me, the biggest challenge is being able to continue being able to give some of the events that we're doing. And so it's all about not only just supporting women in our community, but also the support has to come back. Because we need women to engage with us in order for us to continue what we're doing. So that's our biggest challenge at the moment, is how do we encourage that engagement to continue? And so we do try and have some conversations around that and really build on that they know who we are as an organisation as well. So,
That's fabulous.
That's fantastic. And actually, you've got events all over New Zealand, don't you? I saw on your Facebook page, you've got events all over the place. How fantastic. So just about no matter where you are in the country, there's an event near you, which is very cool. Yeah.
No excuse. From the top of the North Island, so we've got a group in Whangarei, right through New Zealand to Dunedin. So
fantastic.
Awesome.
Amazing. Well done. That's just a huge undertaking. Well, it appears like a huge undertaking. It appears like massive. Yeah. That's great.
Been massive. It's taken a lot of brain power to get around and figure out how to do it all.
Yeah,
it's so amazing. You've not just created a business, Rebecca, you've created a movement, and there's something so beautiful and aspirational. And I'm so grateful that you've taken some time to chat to us today. And we'll make sure we send out all the ways people can come and find you and just share the love. But thank you so much. Anything from anyone live in terms of questions? Do you want to throw Rebecca a curveball? Or
sure, throw them this way.
What's a good one-liner for when you're like at an event like that, just to get a conversation started that's not like about the weather and stuff awkward?
Good question.
But also not embarrassing. Because I find
planning is the best way on that one. So go away and find a really good question. I actually found a book, and I've got it right beside me actually. It's called
All About You.
Oh,
wow, cool.
And I just got it from Kmart. It's got 2,500 questions that you could ask anybody. And so occasionally when I'm a little bored or stuck for content on social media, I'll just stick out one of these questions. But, it's about planning and being organised, I think, is the biggest thing. And getting to a point where you've got it so stuck in your head that it's the first question. And it's not about how many children do you have or what job do you do? It's about, so what brought you here today? Or, what do you do for fun? What's your favourite movie?
Right?
Yeah.
But not perhaps as deep as sex, right, from the first. Don't trust us.
That comes some time.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Oh, such a great question, Claire, and thank you so much. I think we'll leave it there, conscious of everyone's time and this being a short injection, but I could sit here and talk all day, Rebecca. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone who's joining us live and on the replay, we hope this is really, really valuable, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
See ya.
Bye.